Hey guys, tonight we slip beneath the burning gold sky of ancient Ethiopia, where the air is thick with incense and distant drum beats. You stand at the edge of a royal courtyard, the stones warm under your bare feet, and every breath you take is laced with frankincense and something sharper. Fear? Maybe. Or maybe it's the flick of a tail just behind you. Because to your left, lounging on an embroidered cushion like it owns the kingdom, is a full-grown cheetah. Its eyes follow you. Not lazily. No, they track every breath, every twitch of your pinky toe like it might mean dinner. A thin golden chain links its collar to a post sunk into the earth, but the chain is mostly for show. Everyone knows, if it wants to run, nothing's stopping it. And now you're told this is your new work partner. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where in the world you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're a fresh recruit in the kingdom of Aksum, maybe 5th century AD. The empire's reach stretches from the highlands down to the Red Sea. Trade routes bloom like arteries, gold, ivory, spices, and they all pulse with one fragile lifeblood: messages. No parchment planes, no satellites. Just breathless human legs and the occasional blur of feline motion. Which brings us back to the cheetah now yawning beside you. Her name is Zala. That's what the trainer whispers, while throwing you a look that's either pity or amusement. Zala was raised in the palace compound, fed milk, massaged with scented oils, and taught from cupboard not to maul. Mostly. Cheetahs were not pets here. They were not trophies. They were political assets, status symbols, and sometimes, incredibly, assistants to messengers like you. The logic? If humans tired, cheetahs didn't. If a royal runner fell to a snakebite, the cat might still carry a coated collar or run to the next camp. Or so the scribes claimed. Historians still argue whether cheetahs actually completed missions solo, or just served as flashy deterrents. Either way, one was watching your every move now. You try not to sweat. Zala's whiskers twitch. In the courtyard around you, elders in white cotton robes circle a wooden post. A small drum taps out a slow rhythm. This is your introduction ceremony, part blessing, part warning. You kneel, as everyone does, and sip from a carved horn. The liquid tastes like honey and ashes. Someone murmurs a prayer to the old spirits of the hills, asking them to protect the feet that dare follow wind. Because that's the job, right? You don't just run fast. You run with the wind. You watch trees bend and try to follow the motion. You feel for dry patches of earth that hold heat longer and mark your path. And when you can't rely on instinct, you trust Zala, who has already vanished behind a tree and is silently stalking a beetle for no good reason. Mainstream historians agree Aksum was an early center of innovation, minting coins, engineering dams, writing in Guyazi. But fringe accounts talk of animal partnerships beyond what seems practical. One scroll claims certain messengers were trained to speak in low-frequency whistles, the same way hunters lured cheetahs to bait traps. Another describes cheetahs being bathed in lavender water before runs, both for calming effect and to disguise human scent. Still, your legs ache. The trainer claps once, sharp, and suddenly Zala sits beside you again. How? You didn't hear her move. You didn't even breathe. The sun's dipping now. The courtyard fills with long shadows and thicker incense. A tiny bell rings, messenger curfew. For now, you'll sleep in the lower chambers. Tomorrow begins your first trial run. Tomorrow, you'll race Zala across the thorn fields. You'll try not to fall. You'll try not to lose the scroll stitched into your sash. And if the gods are merciful, you'll live to joke about it. For now, you lie on a woven mat, cheetah curled surprisingly close, her side rising and falling like the bellows of some ancient forge. The stars outside flicker like sparks. Sleep tight. Tomorrow, you chase wind. The trainer doesn't knock. He just flings the reed curtain aside at dawn and claps twice. You flinch upright. Zala doesn't. She's already gone, a faint pawprint in the dust where her flank warmed the mat all night. You're not sure if that means she likes you, or is trying to keep an eye on her future prey. Either way, your day begins the same as every new royal runner's, barefoot, breathless, and full of regret. The trial route lies beyond the palace walls, cutting straight through the acacia thickets to the rim of the valley. You're told not to worry about pace yet, just about survival. A helpful instruction, considering the first 10 meters include thorn bushes, loose rocks, and one very judgmental goat. The sun's already warming the air. It'll hit 30 degrees before your first break, and the only shade is the occasional tree you pass too fast to appreciate. Your guide, a veteran runner with calves like temple columns, trots beside you at an infuriatingly calm rhythm. He hums. He talks. You wheeze like a broken flute. Zala, of course, paces you both from a nearby ridge. Effortlessly. Like she's floating on a lazy breeze. Cheetahs aren't long-distance runners by nature. They're sprinters, built for explosive acceleration. But the palace trainers, ever inventive, bred lineages for stamina, pairing sleek northern cats with more muscular mountain types. Fringe reports describe secret enclosures where certain bloodlines were trained not just to chase, but to escort. Cheetahs raised beside runners from birth, bonded like siblings. You didn't get one of those. You got Zala. The path dips suddenly. A dry riverbed, scattered with sharp black stones. You misstep, twist your ankle, and Zala's there in a blink, trotting past with something dangerously close to smugness. The veteran grins and says, she doesn't wait for the slow. You limp onward. Historians widely agree that Aksum's terrain made royal communication uniquely grueling. Unlike flat empires with roads, the Ethiopian highlands offered cliffs, canyons, and climate shifts intense enough to make a grown man cry. A single message might require a 3-day dash over jagged ridges, dodging wild animals and rogue weather fronts. Runners were trained like warriors. Or like fools. By midday, you shed every illusion of pride. You are sweat, legs, and sand. You stumble into a clearing where 3 stone pillars mark the trial endpoint. The trainer hands you a skin of tepid water. Zala drinks from a silver bowl beside you, unfazed. You didn't die, he says cheerfully. That's good. You collapse. Later, in the shade of a tamarind tree, your muscles pulsing with rage and lactic acid, you're taught the next lesson, stillness. Not rest. Not laziness. Deliberate stillness. A messenger must be able to stop like a held breath, to avoid a predator or watch a trail undetected. You're told to sit. Then to sit perfectly still. No fidgeting. No scratching. No twitching your eye when a fly circles your nose. Zala, of course, lies curled in total serenity, her tail barely twitching. You start to suspect she's better at this job than you are. The quirky part? One old scroll suggests messengers were sometimes tested by sitting still while small creatures crawled on them, ants, beetles, even a curious mongoose once. A mental trial of willpower. The kind of thing you suspect was invented out of boredom or revenge. As the sun begins to set again, and the trees cast long golden shadows, the trainer claps one more time. First trial done. Tomorrow, we begin the real work. You nod. You groan. You try not to whimper as you stand. Zala flicks her tail against your shin, gently. A gesture? An approval? Or just one final reminder of who's in charge? Back at the palace, you soak your feet in a basin of water tinged with eucalyptus oil. It stings. But beneath the ache, there's a flicker of something else, pride. You didn't quit. You didn't throw up. And, small miracle, you didn't get mauled. From your mat, you glance at Zala's silhouette in the archway. She sits facing the stars, unmoving, like a sentry made of moonlight. You wonder if she dreams of running too. Before the first rooster crows, you're already kneeling in the palace courtyard, the stones still cool beneath your shins. The rising sun paints everything in gold and rust, except the circle of elders in cream-white robes, who remain timeless in the glow. Beside you, Zala's tail swishes in slow arcs, carving invisible sigils into the morning air. This is not a race today. It's a ritual. A drum begins its heartbeat rhythm, low, steady, ancient. One of the elders steps forward, holding a shallow brass bowl filled with powder the color of dry blood. He dips 2 fingers in and gently marks your brow, then Zala's forehead, then the stone between you. Today, you are being joined. In Aksumite tradition, a royal messenger's bond with their animal counterpart wasn't merely practical, it was spiritual. You didn't just train with a cheetah. You pledged to run as one, to sense danger like one, to trust like one. Historians largely accept this ceremony's existence, but debate whether it was symbolic or believed to hold real power. Of course, when you're eye level with a predator licking its chops beside you, the difference feels deeply academic. Drink, The elder commands softly. You sip a cloudy infusion from a horn cup. It's bitter, with a floral aftertaste, and immediately makes your fingertips buzz. It's a stimulant brewed from cod leaves, honey, and crushed bark. Not exactly Red Bull, but enough to jolt your nerves into humming. Then begins the mimicry. You're told to mirror Zala's movements as closely as you can. Not just pacing, posture, gaze, even blinking. A cruel game at first. When she stretches, you stretch. When she yawns, you yawn. When she bolts without warning, you stumble after her like a drunk puppet, face planting in front of the entire royal household. Somewhere, a guard snorts. You're too dazed to care. But then a strange thing happens. Around the 4th round, Zala slows. She glances back at you, not contemptuously, but with something that might be curiosity. Maybe even allowance. And when you step in time with her, hips low, knees bent, breath shallow, you feel it. The rhythm. The hum. Cheetahs, according to a French theory, may have been trained to read subtle cues in human tension. One scroll describes them responding to messenger heartbeats, even mimicking pace when humans faltered. This is dismissed by most scholars as mystical nonsense, but standing here now, hip to shoulder with a 70-pound predator that seems to feel your next move, you're less inclined to mock. After the mimicry, comes the silence. You and Zala sit side by side while a priest chants. The incense thickens until your nose goes numb. You're not told what the chant means, only that it's old. So old that even the stone steps beneath you seem to remember it. At one point, a child brings forward a folded silk sash. On it, the embroidered symbol of a wind-torn scroll. It's tied around your waist, your first badge as a novice courier. Nothing's inside it yet, but soon there will be. And if you ever drop it, misplace it, or let it be stolen, they say your feet will blister until you atone. Zala receives no badge. Her eyes are badge enough. The final part of the ritual is quiet. Just you, her, and the fading drums. You're led to a secluded chamber with a floor of packed earth and a low-burning brazier. The trainer nods toward a woven mat. You lie down. Zala curls beside you. And without meaning to, you fall asleep. You dream of running, not sprinting, but gliding. Weightless. Your vision low to the ground, the wind curving around your whiskers. Wait, whiskers? You wake to find Zala's paw draped over your ankle. She blinks at you once, slow. Out in the corridor, the sun has shifted. You've passed the first great rite. You are no longer just a human. You are a pair. Your feet burn, your lungs scrape, and your tunic clings to you like a wet leaf. And it's only been 12 minutes. You're running barefoot again, this time over scorched earth and scattered gravel, every step a negotiation between pain and pride. The path loops through a maze of thorns and yellow grass taller than your shoulders. A soft rustle to your left tells you Zala is keeping pace, unseen, but definitely not uninterested. Today's lesson? Speed. Not speed alone, though. Speed with memory. Speed with awareness. The Axumite messengers weren't just sprinting arrowheads. They had to memorize dozens of paths, recognize stone markers, dodge traps, and detect ambushes, all while running like something hungry was just behind them. Because sometimes, it was. Your trainer calls this exercise the gazelle run. The idea is to run like prey that knows it's being watched. You leap over a ditch filled with dry bones. Goat? Monkey? You don't pause to find out. Another 10 paces and you hit a sharp incline. The trick, you've learned, isn't just running up. It's choosing where not to step. Avoid loose shale. Look for cracks. And never, ever ignore the scent of snake musk. Zala flashes ahead now, just a flicker of motion between two termite mounds. She veers left. You do too, because she always smells trouble first. Cheetahs can detect faint pheromones from predators or sick animals, something even trained scouts struggle with. Your body aches, but your instincts sharpen. Historians mostly agree Axum trained its couriers through relentless exposure, not books or scrolls. You didn't learn routes from maps. You became the map. Your feet memorized the slope of every path, the texture of soil near water, the bark of trees that grew near safe springs. One scroll claims messengers would sleep on different types of earth to merge with its feel. Modern scholars laugh at that. But last night, you accidentally fell asleep in a pile of mulch and woke up knowing exactly where the nearest fig grove is. Not that it helps when the trainer yells, "Too slow," and tosses a reed spear near your feet. You jolt. You trip. You fall, again. And Zala circles you, tail held high, as if to say, try harder, gazelle. Later, during the cooldown under a cluster of baobab trees, you rub your raw heels and stare at Zala. She's grooming her foreleg, utterly unbothered. You envy her. The way she glides over terrain that eats your legs for breakfast. You ask the trainer, how do I match that? He shrugs. You don't. But you can learn to dance beside it. Your next drill involves rhythm, moving through narrow thorn paths without breaking a single twig. It's maddening. Every false step earns a sharp whistle. Zala, of course, passes through the same route without snapping a single blade. You start to copy her, not her pace, but her pauses. Her weight shifts. The way she tests with her front paw before committing to the next. One bizarre fringe belief claimed that successful messengers learned to mimic cheetah footfalls so closely that predators ignored them. It's probably nonsense. But a jackal darts across her path, pauses, sniffs, and runs the other way. That night, in your mat-lined chamber, your knees are bruised, your hips creak, and your soles feel like roasted eggplants. And yet, when Zala curls beside you, purring low and slow, your heart matches her rhythm. You drift off, not as a human in pain, but as a creature learning its stride. Tomorrow brings sand sprints, and the sun will show no mercy. But tonight, your breathing syncs with hers. And you dream, not of escaping, but of belonging. You wake before dawn to a strange sound, soft claws on packed earth, whispering in half circles. Zala is pacing. Not agitated, just waiting. She already knows what kind of day it is. A testing day. One where she's no longer just your companion. She's your co-worker. After a hasty meal of flatbread and fermented goat milk, tastes like cheese left in the sun and blessed by a mule, you're escorted to the southern field. This is where the real partnership begins. No more running alone while Zala watches from a hill like some feline aristocrat. Today, you run with her. As one. The sun rises red and hot, casting long shadows over the dusty track carved into the grassland. It's a training course, but there are no flags, no chalk lines. Just three things, you, Zala, and the message you carry bound against your ribs. Your task is deceptively simple. Deliver a decoy scroll to the far outpost before it expires, i.e., before the sand timer flips itself over from a sun-boiled tripwire. If you're too slow, you fail. If you lose the scroll, you fail. And if you outpace Zala and leave her behind, well, you definitely fail. Your heart's already pounding before you even start. The trainer whistles. Zala bolts. You chase. Running beside a cheetah is like riding next to thunder. You feel it more than see it. She doesn't gallop, she floats. Her body folds and stretches like a ribbon caught in a gust. You try to match her. Your legs churn, your breath stutters, and you nearly trip on a root before correcting at the last second. But something happens by the fifth turn. She slows, just enough. Not laziness. Not mercy. Coordination. She's calibrating to you. Historians still argue whether cheetahs were truly cooperative runners or merely trained to follow scent trails. Some insist the tales of messengers directing cats are exaggerated. But a few recovered clay seals depict humans and cheetahs in tandem postures, not predator and prey, but partners. The art's too consistent to ignore. Around the sixth bend, Zala veers off path. You hesitate, but follow. She's avoiding a patch of sun-baked ground where a scorpion nest once injured a trainee. The sand looks identical to your eye, but Zala smells something. Heat? Poison? You don't ask. You just trust. Midway, you hear a horn from the cliffs. Raiders? No, it's a drill. A test. You're expected to break stride, duck behind a boulder, conceal the scroll, then return to the path without revealing your trail. You signal Zala with 2 clicks of your tongue. She vanishes into grass. You drop, breathe shallow, and hold the scroll under your tunic. A shadow passes overhead, a hawk, maybe. Or a spike kite. You're trained to suspect both. You stay still. Count to 5. Then run. Zala reappears beside you, as if conjured. Her breath is steady. Yours sounds like you swallowed a thunderstorm. Some stories, dismissed by most scholars, claim elite messengers developed a series of gesture codes with their cheetahs. Tail flick equals stop. Ear twitch equals left. Eye contact equals threat. You thought it was nonsense. Now you're not so sure. Zala hasn't made a sound all day. And yet, You've never communicated more clearly with any living being. As the final leg appears, a long straightaway flanked by acacia trees, you dig deep. The scroll burns against your ribs. The sand timer's whistle is faint, but near. Zala pushes ahead, then glances sideways, not to taunt, but to guide. Together, you sprint. You reach the outpost just as the final grain of sand slips through. You slap the scroll down, breath ragged. Zala sits beside you, panting softly, tail brushing your ankle. You pass. Not just because you ran fast, but because you listened. You matched. You didn't try to be faster. You tried to be with. Later that evening, your legs scream as you soak them in cool river water. Zala drinks nearby, eyes half-lidded. You wonder if she even got tired. Probably not. But just before she curls up for sleep, she presses her head lightly into your knee. Approval. Or maybe, recognition. You're still learning her language. The palace smells like spiced lentils and wet fur this morning. You sit cross-legged beneath a faded silk canopy, legs aching, as a bronze tray is placed before you. On it, steamed millet cakes, a small bowl of clarified butter, and a chunk of honeycomb so fresh the bees still look offended. You barely have time to chew before the trainers arrive, followed by an entourage of animals that look like they wandered out of a royal petting zoo with murder in their eyes. Today's lesson has nothing to do with running. It's about lunch, and how you survive it. You're in the company of the palace's elite animal trainers, the ones responsible for keeping cheetahs like Zala obedient and, more importantly, uninterested in eating people. They're sun-burnished, scar-scraped, and smell faintly of goat fat and cedarwood. One of them drops onto the cushion beside you and grins. You're still alive. Must mean she likes you. You're not so sure. Zala is currently eyeing a bowl of raw quail eggs with suspicious precision. You've learned that when she gets quiet, something's either about to be eaten or torn in half. What follows is a crash course in cheetah etiquette. No sudden moves, no high-pitched laughter, and never, never, look them in the eyes unless you're either a handler or clinically insane. One trainer explains the feeding protocol. It's precise: raw meat at sunrise, boiled bone broth by noon, and a blend of herbs and oils rubbed into the fur before dusk. Not for pampering, but for scent control. Cheetahs, it turns out, hate the smell of certain human sweat, especially fierce sweat. You've been sweating that particular flavor a lot lately. Fringe reports suggest some handlers even burn sandalwood or myrrh beneath feeding stations to soothe cats' nerves during storms or battle drills. Most modern scholars raise eyebrows at the idea of aromatherapy for apex predators, but then again, they've never shared a dinner table with one. As the meal begins, so does the real test, sharing space. Zala sits close. Too close. You glance sideways and realize her ear is brushing your elbow. She eats slowly, deliberately, tongue curling around each bite like it's a ceremony. You try to match her pace, nibbling cautiously at your millet cake like a polite diplomat in a war zone. Your trainer watches this exchange with quiet approval. She's measuring you, he says. Not just your scent, your rhythm. Cheetahs are sensory creatures. They don't just observe, they tune in. To heartbeats. To breathing. To posture. A messenger who panics during lunch is unlikely to stay calm during a sandstorm ambush. You're then shown the grooming ritual. No, not for you. For her. With slow, reverent motions, you learn to brush Zala's coat using a bundle of dried reeds soaked in marula oil. The idea is not to tame, but to connect. Your hands must move as steady as the wind. Not too fast. Not too slow. Cheetahs hate hesitancy. This task feels more intimate than anything so far. Her eyes close halfway. Her ribs expand and contract with each long breath. You've seen nobility kneel before statues with less reverence. One dusty scroll even describes royal messengers singing to their cheetahs during grooming, believing in enhanced loyalty. There's no official record of this, but you hum softly under your breath, a lullaby your grandmother once used when you were too small to run and too afraid to sleep. Zala doesn't react. Then again, she doesn't move away. After grooming comes the final part of your initiation lunch, the leash ritual. A leather cord is produced, not for control, but symbolism. You are to lead her once, without pulling. If she follows willingly, you've earned the right to travel together outside palace walls. You take the loop, whisper her name, and step forward. She follows. No tension. No hesitation. Just one paw after the other, falling into rhythm behind you like she was always meant to walk there. That night, your trainer gifts you a woven sash, red and gold, the mark of a bonded pair. You run your fingers along the fabric and feel Zala's breath warm against your side. You're no longer just surviving this. You're becoming part of it. The dust stings your eyes before the first sprint even begins. You're standing on a sun-baked track marked by nothing more than trampled grass and the occasional skull of something unlucky. Ahead lies the speed field, a crisscross of narrow paths, hidden trenches, and oddly placed flags. But today, the goal isn't just raw velocity. Today, you race Zala. Officially, it's not a competition. The trainers remind you, multiple times, that it's a test of synergy. A dance. A shared trial of reflex and instinct. Unofficially, everyone in the courtyard is watching to see whether the soft-footed human runner can keep pace with a predator designed to shatter speed records. Spoiler, you can't. At least, not in a straight line. That's why the track isn't a straight line. You and Zala begin together at the starting stone. A sharp whistle splits the morning air, and she vanishes. You launch yourself forward, heart already punching your ribs. The first obstacle is a low wall of bundled reeds. You vault it. Zala barely flexes, she's over and gone in a blink. But she pauses at the next curve, tail twitching, waiting just long enough for you to catch up. Not out of pity. Strategy. This course, like much of Axumite messenger training, is based on terrain awareness and adaptive movement. Straight lines get you killed. Curves, dips, brush, those save you. Historians agree that many royal message routes zigzag through terrain precisely because it gave messengers an edge over mounted pursuers. The human advantage wasn't in power, it was in knowing when not to run. You're starting to feel it now. The next stretch is lined with hanging gourds, fragile, loud, and easily shattered. Hit one, and you alert the enemy. Zala glides through like mist. You, miraculously, manage to squeeze through without sounding like a musical accident. The crowd doesn't cheer, but they stop laughing. Halfway through, you enter what's called the churn zone. A mess of loose stones, rabbit holes, and sudden drop-offs. Cheetahs, oddly enough, hate uncertain footing. Their claws help, but even they get cautious here. This is where your human knees, reinforced by stubbornness and desperation, give you an edge. You pass Zala. Just briefly. But it counts. A fringed document, rare and half-rotted, once described a messenger who outran his cheetah through the field of stings by crawling through thorns on elbows and teeth. That man supposedly became the emperor's personal courier. Or died of infection. Scholars debate both versions. You're hoping for neither. The course ends with a sprint through loose sand. This is where most humans fail. But you've trained. You've mimicked Zala's stride. You've studied the grain of the ground, learned to shift weight forward, push from the hips, lift, not drag, your heels. You run like your feet belong to someone faster. Zala is beside you now. Not racing you, mirroring you. Her eyes flick to yours. You nod. You drop your shoulders and drive forward. The two of you cross the finish together. No whistle. No applause. Just silence, and then a single nod from the head trainer. Approved. That night, the courtyard hosts a quiet feast. Not a banquet, this isn't about indulgence. It's about bonds. You share dried meats, salted nuts, and sour plum wine with other runners and their cats. You're seated by a fire pit while one elder recounts the story of a cheetah who carried a blood-sealed scroll through enemy lines alone. Historians call it myth. But the way the elder speaks, voice low, eyes flicking to Zala, it doesn't feel like a story. It feels like memory. Zala curls around your feet. A quiet warmth in the evening dusk. Tomorrow's trial is trickier. Coded signals. Disguised gestures. Communication without words. Because if your mouth gets gagged mid-mission, your eyes better still know how to talk. You're not running today. Not crawling, either. You're walking, slowly, head covered, posture slumped, pretending to be a merchant's errand boy carrying nothing more than a bundle of cloth and a half-eaten pomegranate. This, they say, is the most dangerous form of travel, walking with secrets. The path winds toward the city outskirts, cutting through the lower markets, places where the scent of roasting meat mixes with goat droppings and smoke from tiny incense stands. Traders yell. Potters shout prices. Children dart between stalls. You blend in. Zala doesn't. She follows at a respectful distance, slinking through alley shadows and weaving past startled vendors. A woman selling clay beads mutters something about demons. Another whispers, Royal Guard. They're both wrong, but close enough. Today's mission is simple: pass through the public quarter, deliver a small satchel to the Weavers Guild, and avoid being identified. You are not allowed to speak, not to nod, not even to frown. Every signal must be silent, and Zala has to understand it. Here comes the first test. At the edge of the herb stalls, a guard steps into your path. He's not palace-born, just a local militia dog with a sunburnt spear and boredom in his eyes. He grunts, "You lost, boy?" You stop, briefly glance down, then to the right, one blink, two slow breaths, and a barely perceptible shift of your weight. Zala vanishes behind a cart. The guard scratches himself and walks away. Fringe writings describe a rare dialect of motion used by royal messengers. Not sign language, exactly. More like gesture grammar, a code of glances, breaths, and posture shifts taught alongside animal cues. Most historians believe it's wildly overstated. But here you are, speaking an entire sentence to a cheetah with your spine. The Weavers Guild sits at the edge of a canal. You approach slowly. Inside, an old woman takes the satchel without speaking. She slides you a piece of silk in return, navy blue, embroidered with a single golden eye. It means, message received, secrecy held. You slip it into your sleeve. Outside, you find Zala crouched beside a stack of grain sacks. She yawns. You nod once. She stands. The return journey is faster, but not easier. Two boys try to sell you figs as spice merchant insists on rubbing something red into your palm. Good luck charm, he insists. You wave him off. Zala growls softly. The man vanishes. You keep walking. Historians agree the palace messengers often pass through marketplaces, using the chaos as cover. But what they rarely mention is how deeply these spaces were laced with surveillance. Not formal spies, whispers. Vendors. Bakers. Children. Every stall had ears. Every loaf of bread could carry news if sliced the right way. As you round a corner near the stone well, a woman with henna-stained hands calls to you. She asks if you're the boy with the spotted dog. You stop. Zala tenses. You glance up, 3 blinks, deliberately slow. Zala moves past you and rubs her flank against the woman's knee. Charm. Distraction. Dismissal. The woman laughs. Ah, she is beautiful. A queen's cat, I think. You don't answer. You just keep walking. Back at the compound, the trainer meets you with one eyebrow raised. Did she follow? You nod. Hand him the silk strip. She understands more than you think, he says. Some say cheetahs don't just read gestures. They read doubt. You sit beside Zala in the shade. She licks her paw and presses it to your knee. A rare scroll once claimed messengers were chosen not just for speed or strength, but for emotional stillness. A cheetah, they believed, would only trust a soul that didn't tremble. You didn't tremble today. Not much, anyway. You sit cross-legged in a shaded courtyard, sweating not from heat, but from concentration. Before you lies a simple leather cord strung with wooden beads. Beside it, a folded scrap of linen embroidered with crooked geometric patterns. At first glance, it's the sort of thing a bored child might make. At second glance, you realize it's a message, and possibly a dangerous one. Today's lesson, the hidden language. Not spoken. Not written. Worn. The head of the Courier Guild places a second item in your palm, a small knot of braided horsehair, looped twice, stiff with resin. He nods toward it. Tell me what it says. You stare blankly. He doesn't smile. Then learn. Or die stupid. Royal messages couldn't always travel by scroll or seal. Too visible. Too easy to intercept. Instead, Axumite messengers learned to weave codes into everyday items, bracelets, belt ties, hems, even eyelash paint patterns. The human body became the parchment. And yes, historians agree this part is real. The palace archives contain several recovered tunics with deliberate stitch variations, some spelling route markers, others warnings. You're handed a wax pouch filled with tokens, beads, strings, carved bones, miniature stamped coins. The trainer says nothing, just gestures toward a chart made of woven straw strips hung on a wall. Each section displays a pattern and its meaning. You spend the next hour mimicking knots with fingers that don't feel like yours. Zala watches from across the room, bored and licking her shoulder. You envy her. Cats don't need ciphers. They just are. Then the harder part begins, matching signals to situations. You're given a scenario. A diplomat's son is kidnapped en route to a mining province. You can't speak. You can't carry a scroll. You must wear the message. What bead do you choose? What knot tells the receiving agent that this is a high-priority retrieval? That the threat is internal? That the boy is alive, but barely? It's like chess, but you're the board. The guild master corrects your third attempt. Then your fifth. But by the seventh, he nods. Good. Don't forget it. Next, you're paired with Zala. A bell rings. You're handed a slip of papyrus with a location, Cleft Rock Shrine, somewhere outside the palace walls. The twist? You're forbidden to carry anything visible. You loop a coated braid into your sash. Tie a second into the corner of your tunic. Press a bead into Zala's collar, an old practice, rarely used, but symbolic. The two of you walk the northern path, silent and sharp-eyed. Along the way, a market girl offers fruit. You take a fig, place it in your belt, then remove it 5 steps later, code for message intercepted but preserved. Zala mirrors your pace, never straying. Historians debate whether the cats themselves understood these codes or simply reacted to training sequences. Some argue the cheetahs were trained to respond to physical signals like hip shifts or hand taps. Others insist the animals could smell tension, a notion dismissed by most modern scholars. But when you hesitate at a fork in the road, and Zala veers left without prompting, you start to wonder. You reach the shrine just before sundown. The receiver stands beside a stone altar, pretending to inspect incense offerings. You scratch your ear twice, drop the fig, and brush your elbow against the stone. He nods, never meeting your eyes, and disappears into the hills. Mission done. The return walk is quiet. Fireflies blink along the trail. Zala stays close, not ahead, not behind. Back at the compound, the trainer unwraps your coated belt and inspects each knot. Clear, he says. Precise. Subtle. You're learning. You sleep with the braid under your pillow that night. Zala, for once, sleeps near your ribs, her head rising and falling with each of your breaths. She understands your rhythm now. And maybe, just maybe, your language too. You thought you'd known exhaustion. Thought you'd made peace with dust and ache, with blisters and dry mouth and the strange soreness in your teeth after too many hours under the sun. But this is different. This is the Great Rift Crossing. You're half a day into your longest run yet, and your legs have begun to operate like someone else's. They don't ask permission anymore. They just lift, press, stumble, recover. Lift again. The sky overhead is a white-hot smear, and the land stretches out in yawning silence. No towns. No towers. Just emptiness, broken by ridges and acacia trees shaped like questions. Zala trots ahead, unbothered. Her paws leave light prints in the reddish dust, spaced too far apart for your aching stride to match. She pauses now and then, not to wait, but to listen. You've noticed she does that in wide open spaces. Her ears swivel. Her tail lowers. She becomes less companion, more compass. The Great Rift Valley is not kind. It's a jagged wound in the earth, stretching from Lebanon to Mozambique. In your time, it's a corridor of challenges, desert winds that feel like claws, steep cliffs lined with vulture nests, and mirages that dance just far enough to trick the desperate. Historians confirm it was a key messenger route in the Axumite network, dangerous, but vital. Fringe theories say some runners refused the crossing altogether, believing the rift curse. Too many messengers never returned. You pause at a rise, blinking sweat from your lashes. Zala drinks from a shallow puddle at the base of a rock. You kneel beside her and dip your fingers. The water smells like stone and root, barely clean, but enough to keep moving. Then, a noise. Low, faint, dragging. You both freeze. From behind the ridge comes the clink of something metallic. A camel bell, maybe. Or a trap. You press flat against the dirt, heart climbing up your throat. Zala lowers into a crouch, every muscle coiled like rope. A shadow passes. Just a trader's caravan, bones wrapped in cloth, their eyes glazed with heat. They don't see you. You don't move. After they pass, Zala flicks her ear once. You exhale. This is what courier work truly means. Not just speed, but silence. Not just memory, but intuition. You aren't just delivering messages anymore, you are surviving them. The sun tips lower. You push forward, down into the rift. The terrain shifts. Sand becomes stone, then cracked basalt that rattles underfoot. You skid twice. Zala dances over it like a ghost. By twilight, you reach the midway shelter, a ruin of an old temple, half collapsed, but still used by runners. You share your last strip of dried meat with Zala, who sniffs it, then chooses instead to gnaw on something invisible in the dust. Probably smarter. Inside, the walls bear scratch marks, dates, names, even prayers. One message reads, "If the wind forgets your name, remember your feet." You lie on your back, staring at a crack in the ceiling that looks suspiciously like a claw. Historians still argue whether messengers of Aksum carried actual weapons or merely relied on speed and subtlety. Some scrolls describe bone knives hidden in sandals. Others mention amulets blessed by priests to repel wild spirits. You wear none. Just your sash, your breath, and the feline who curls next to your hip like the world is made of velvet. Tomorrow, you climb. The rift is not just a basin, it's a ladder. And the return path winds upward like a snake with trust issues. You'll need to move fast. Rocks fall here. So do nerves. But tonight, under stars sharper than teeth, you rest. You and Zala. Two creatures carved by silence, trained by heat, and bound now not by leash, but by rhythm. The sun hasn't risen yet, but the stones beneath your feet are already warm. You're at the foot of a narrow canyon pass, where the wind shrieks between cliffs like it's trying to warn you off. Zala stands ahead, motionless, except for the slow swing of her tail. The climb out of the rift begins now. But before that, something older, deeper, is required. You kneel. The trainer's voice echoes in your memory. Before you carry their words, you swear their silence. This is the sacred oath. No scrolls, no stamps. Just breath, blood, and earth. You pick up a shard of stone and press it lightly to your palm. Just enough to draw a line, symbolic, not painful. Zala watches. You touch the stone to the ground, then your forehead, then trace a circle in the dust. That circle marks your promise, that what you carry will not be spoken, not forgotten, not altered, even if your tongue is cut or your path ends at a cliff's edge. Historians mostly agree this ritual existed, though its exact form varies wildly. Some accounts speak of blood, others of whispered prayers into jars sealed with wax. One fringe source claims messengers were sometimes buried up to the waist for a night, so the earth could test their spine. You prefer the symbolic cut. Zala pads forward and places her paw in the circle. Not trained, not coax, just a gesture. You blink, and the wind shifts. You begin the climb. The slope is cruel, crumbling shale, dry brush, sudden switchbacks. You use hands, knees, elbows, whatever will keep you from sliding back down. Zala moves ahead, then pauses. Watches. Her coat blends into the golden rocks. You're not sure if she's waiting, scouting, or simply enjoying your struggle. Halfway up, you encounter an old marker, a carved obsidian spike driven into the rock. Just beneath it, someone's etched a glyph, spiral, triangle, vertical slash. You recognize it now, secure passage, watch east. These marks were left by messengers for messengers, part of a silent network long erased by time but remembered in bodies and breath. You tap the symbol with 2 fingers. Zala touches her nose to it. The final stretch is the worst. The trail narrows to a knife-edge ridge with no room to stumble. Your legs shake. Your fingers burn. But the oath burns hotter. Then, cresting the last boulder, you see it, the checkpoint. A stone cairn, 3 flat rocks balanced on a fourth, and beyond it, a guard in layered robes and mirrored goggles. Not palace-issued. Independent. One of the watchers. He says nothing. Just holds out a small obsidian token. You take it, press your marked palm against it. He inspects the faint blood streak and nods. Message confirmed, he mutters. But you haven't spoken. Because the real message is stitched into your tunic hem, 3 gold threads, woven to mimic the constellation Sagitta. Royal code. Directional. Urgent. You bow, turn back, and begin the descent down the far side. Zala doesn't follow immediately. She sits beside the cairn for a full minute, gazing back over the rift. You wonder if she sees the same jagged path you just conquered, or the ghosts of those who didn't. Eventually, she joins you. You don't speak, but your body does, slower gait, angled shoulders, breathing through the nose now. Oath carried. Message released. Now return whole. You make camp by a dry riverbed, where the stars drip silver onto the cracked earth. Zala lies with her back against yours. Some say cheetahs can sense the weight of a vow, that they feel it in your spine, that they trust only those who carry silence like a shield. You sleep without dreams, and wake without doubt. You stretch awake to the sound of wind brushing through thorn trees, and the unmistakable wet crunch of Zala biting into breakfast. A rabbit, it seems. You nod at her. She doesn't care. Today, back at the palace, you're being summoned to something different. Not a run. Not a mission. A story. You're led to a private garden tucked behind the royal library, where a wrinkled woman sits cross-legged beneath a fig tree. She's dressed simply, but the two guards flanking her wear gilded belts, a quiet way of saying, she may not wear a crown, but everyone answers when she talks. They call her keeper of the bloodline. She gestures you forward. Zala follows on her own, tail upright, casually terrifying a passing bird. You sit on the woven mat she offers, the fig leaves above swaying just enough to cool your skin. Then she speaks, not to greet you, but to begin. You run with the blooded cat, she says. Do you know her name? You nod. Zala. She smiles, amused. That's what the trainers call her. But that's not her name. Not the old one. From a pouch at her side, she pulls a leather-bound scroll, so aged it might predate the palace walls. She unties it slowly, carefully. Inside is a painted lineage, no words, just symbols. A family tree made of paws, stars, and claws. Zala's line, she tells you, traces back to the court of Makeda, the Queen of Sheba herself. Most historians treat this as royal mythology, a lovely blend of fact and fable. The idea that cheetahs once accompanied Queen Makeda on diplomatic journeys to Jerusalem? That they were gifted by Solomon as part of a sacred exchange? Unlikely, say the scholars. Too poetic. Too convenient. But as the keeper points to one specific emblem, a silver spot encircled by flames, you feel a strange chill. That mark, she says, tapping Zala's flank, matches yours. You glance at your sash. At the embroidery you thought was decorative. It's the same mark. Zala stretches, blinks, and lies down, directly atop your foot. She chose you, the keeper says. But more importantly, she remembers. There's a long silence, filled only by the wind and the soft thud of figs dropping to the ground. Then she continues. The cheetahs, she explains, were not just messengers' companions. They were guardians of royal memory, trained to sense not only movement, but truth. Rumors persisted that some were taught to recognize bloodlines by scent, or to detect lies through breathing patterns. French folklore, yes, but compelling. Especially when the keeper says, she will never run with a liar. You want to laugh, but Zala's eyes are locked on yours. She's listening. You nod once, and the keeper smiles. Before you leave, she gives you a gift, a pendant carved of bone and obsidian. The shape resembles a cheetah mid-leap. For when you need her trust more than her speed, she says. As you walk back to the barracks, pendant in one hand, you keep glancing at Zala. She's not looking at you. Not obviously. But she stays just close enough to touch. That night, you dream of a woman draped in gold, riding through the desert with a cheetah beside her, and a scroll bound in royal blue clutched in her palm. The woman never speaks. But the cat does. The jungle breathes heavier at night. You're deeper than you've ever been, far from the polished courtyards and ceremonial fountains of the palace. The air here feels like soup. Thick, wet, alive. It clings to your skin, beads along your spine, fogs your thoughts. And the eyes. Oh, the eyes. They watch you from every branch and shadow. Gold, green, pale blue. Predators and prey alike, waiting, measuring. Tonight, you and Zala sleep among leopards. You hadn't planned to. This was supposed to be a simple navigation trial. Follow the starlit trail to an abandoned outpost, retrieve a training seal, return by dawn. But halfway through, the heavens opened, the path flooded, and the jungle swallowed your route like a bedtime story gone sour. So now, you've built a crude shelter with 2 branches and 1 sadly torn cloak, and Zala is curled beside you, but she's not relaxed. She's alert. Still. Watching the trees. You don't ask what she sees. You don't want to know. Leopards, unlike cheetahs, don't care for humans. They're not social. Not loyal. They don't warn you before the bite. Axamite scrolls list them as hazards to be avoided at all costs. One French record claims that a rogue courier once tried to tame one, lasted a week before he became part of the forest diet. Most dismiss it as legend. No one argues with leopards. You listen to the calls that don't sound like birds, to the rustling that doesn't match the wind, to Zala's breathing, steady, sharp, then suddenly halted. She's seen something. Your fingers find the obsidian pendant the keeper gave you. You don't know why you reach for it. Maybe you think it'll help. Maybe you hope it will remind Zala of whatever bond has kept her from bolting. Then you hear it. A low growl. Not Zala. Deeper. Across the clearing, a shadow shifts. Two green lights hover in midair. A crouched shape, muscled, still, emerges just far enough of the moonlight to kiss its fur. A leopard. Massive. Scarred. Its ears twitch. Its eyes flicker. Zala rises. No sound. Just one smooth lift of her body, and suddenly she's between you and it. You should run. You don't. You stay. Because this is the test. Not of speed, not of knowledge, but of trust. The leopard steps forward. 3 paces. Zala lets out a sound you've never heard before. Not a hiss. Not a growl. Something in between. It's a warning. A claim. The leopard stops. The air thickens. Even the insects go silent. And then, after one long, unreadable pause, it turns and disappears into the brush. You don't exhale until Zala does. Some say cheetahs are cowards. That they avoid conflict. That they can't match the power of lions or the stealth of leopards. But tonight, under a dripping sky and surrounded by eyes you cannot name, Zala did not back down. She stayed. And so did you. The rest of the night is slow. You don't sleep. Not really. But you rest. Against her side. Her heartbeat a quiet metronome to measure the fear. By dawn, the trail is visible again. And the training seal? Zala digs it out from beneath a patch of moss near a broken statue. Of course she does. As you make your way back through the jungle, every step a prayer against snakebite and sliding rocks, you glance over at her again and again. She never looks back. She doesn't need to. She knows you're there. And now, maybe more than ever, you know she always will be. You return to the palace limping and soaked, with twigs in your hair and the faint smell of fear clinging to your tunic like perfume. Zala's dry. Of course. Somehow, even after a night in leopard country, she looks smugly pristine. The trainers take one look at you, mud-caked and wild-eyed, and grunt their approval. Good, one says. Now you're ready for the real problems. You want to ask what the previous nights were, if not real problems. They don't answer. Instead, they hand you a new set of tools, a thin ceramic vial, barely longer than your finger, a rolled strip of treated hide marked with oil blotches, and a blade so narrow you mistake it for a hairpin until you see its edge gleam. Today's lesson: poison, spies, and sandstorms. You sit in a shaded alcove while the quartermaster, a woman with fingers like old rope and a voice like gravel, lays out your new kit. This, she says, holding up the vial, is for scorpion venom. Not if you get stung. If someone else does. She doesn't explain who. She doesn't need to. The treated hide? It's for wrapping messages too sensitive to carry openly. They're meant to be buried, not delivered, sealed and hidden near landmarks only insiders would recognize. You learn the code. 1 knot in the corner for southeast, 3 for burial near water. This is not the courier work you trained for. This is war messaging. And the blade? That's for when you need to cut more than cloth. Most historians gloss over this part of Aksum's royal network. The polished version speaks of couriers as noble runners of truth and order. But older oral records, less popular, but no less insistent, tell stories of messengers who carried poison capsules in their cheeks, who could vanish a scroll faster than a hawk's dive. Some accounts describe body doubles, others whisper of silence agents, who were more assassin than envoy. Scholars still argue whether these were real, or palace theater taken too seriously. But when the quartermaster points to a scar on her ribs and says, "Knife didn't kill me. The silence did," you don't ask for footnotes. Zala watches all of this, curled in the doorway, head tilted. That afternoon, you're taken to the storm field. It's not an actual desert. Not quite. But the trainers have chosen the most open, dry, and unpredictable stretch of plain within royal grounds, and with enough wind tunnels funneling through stone ridges to simulate a sandstorm when they want one. They want one. You're blindfolded. Not because you're being punished, but because you need to learn what it feels like when sight fails. A whistle. Then the rush. Dust. Wind. Chaos. It stings your skin, howls through your ears. You lose direction in seconds. Your mouth fills with grit. You crouch low, hands outstretched. Then a brush of fur. Zala. You reach out, fingers splayed, and she presses her flank to your leg. Not hard. Not long. Just enough. You remember, 2 blinks for stop. 3 for go. Breathe once, wait. Then run. You don't know where you're going. But she does. You sprint, trusting each shift of her body, each pause, each dash. The wind roars, but you follow her shadow like it's a rope. When you reach the end, falling onto your knees at the edge of the inner wall, the trainer removes your blindfold. You lived, he says. Barely. That night, your hands tremble while you unwrap the blade and set it beside your mat. Not out of fear, but ritual. The way the runners before you did. You run fingers over the handle, not the edge. Zala curls at your feet. She stretches, yawns, then sniffs the blade once before nudging it aside. Her eyes say, you won't need that. But still, you sleep with it nearby. Because now you know, speed wins races. But in the real work, it's silence, steel, and trust. The courtyard is quiet. No drums. No whistles. No shouted commands from sand-choked instructors. Just the rustle of silk, the faint tinkle of bronze bangles, and the scent of roasted coffee wafting from somewhere behind the columned garden walls. You're in full ceremonial dress today, red sash over the shoulder, ivory pin at the hip, and the mark of the courier, a tiny golden claw, stitched just above your heart. It doesn't feel like training anymore. Because this isn't training. It's the Emperor's Tournament. Held once a year, the tournament is a showcase of Aksum's most elite runners, those who've completed at least one long-range royal mission and returned with all limbs, all secrets, and ideally, their minds intact. Some don't. Some leave whole and come back whispering to birds or flinching from shadows. The rift eats more than flesh. But you're here. Zala is here. And for the first time, you're being asked not just to serve, but to perform. The arena isn't an arena. Not in the gladiator sense. It's a walled compound of shifting obstacles, nets that drop at random, smoke vents disguised as flowers, couriers dressed in enemy colors to mislead. The rules are clear. Deliver a sealed scroll to the high platform at the center, evade at least 3 pursuit units, and signal your cheetah partner without speaking. And it must all be done in under 6 minutes. You stand at the starting gate, scroll tucked into your hip wrap, heart ticking like a war drum. Across the sand, the Emperor himself sits beneath a canopy, fanning himself with a peacock feather fan. Around him, dignitaries, generals, visiting traders from the Nile, and, rumor has it, even an envoy from distant Himyar. You spot a runner from the western provinces. He nods. You nod back. Then you both look at your partners. His cat growls. Zala sneezes. A bell chimes. You sprint. It's not a straight shot. You don't even see the platform for the first 2 minutes. Smoke plumes rise, then vanish. You vault a low wall, duck beneath a suspended log, roll over gravel that slices your elbows. A red-cloaked enemy intercepts you with a spear, fake, but fast. You dodge. Zala barrels in from the left and swipes his ankle. He drops. Somewhere in the stands, someone laughs. Historians often argue over whether these tournaments were purely ritual or practical drills. Some say they were more pageantry than purpose, a way to impress foreign eyes with flashes of fur and fabric. But others insist the tournaments were real stress tests, calibrated to expose weaknesses in both human and animal. Judging by the bruises forming on your shin, the second theory holds water. You enter the puzzle segment, 6 paths, only one leads to the platform. Zala chooses. No hesitation. You follow. She leads you under a trap net. You crouch just as it springs, close enough to lose a few hairs but not your head. Then the final leg, the sprint to the platform. It's uphill, and lined with challengers. You click your tongue, twice. Zala flanks you. You weave through 2 interceptors, roll beneath a curtain of hanging chains, and burst into the clearing. 5 runners are already there. You're 6th. You climb. Zala watches from below, chest rising and falling like she barely tried. At the top, you place the scroll in the receiving bowl. Bow. Turn. And leap down. The crowd claps, not wildly, not theatrically, but with a kind of restrained reverence. The emperor lifts a hand. A signal. You pass. Later, you're handed a carved obsidian ring. It bears the symbol of the courier's eye, framed by a cheetah's leap. You wear it on your left index finger. It means, trusted, swift, surviving. That night, the palace throws a feast, not for the nobles, but for the runners. Zala is given a platter of salted fish and a place beside your chair. No leash. No handler. Just presence. As the sun sets, you find yourself drifting toward the edge of the firelight. Zala follows. You whisper, "Did I do well?" She doesn't answer. She just leans against your hip, head low, eyes half closed. You smile. That's yes. You wake to silence, but not the comforting kind. This silence has teeth. It slinks into your chamber before dawn, seeps under the doorframe, folds itself around your chest. Something's shifted in the air, something brittle, unfinished. Even Zala's stillness is different. She isn't asleep beside you. She's at the doorway, tail low, ears forward, body tight. Waiting. Watching. When the knock comes, it's not from the trainers. It's from the palace guard. You're summoned. You follow without a word. In the inner council chamber, the air is thick with the scent of ink and old sweat. 6 officials sit in half shadow, hands folded, mouths tight. On the central table lies a silk-wrapped scroll. Your name is on the seal. You know before they say it, this isn't a practice run. This is a whispered rebellion. The emperor's northern cousin, technically an ally, informally a problem, has been courting foreign mercenaries. Messages intercepted. Coin moving in strange directions. He claims loyalty. The emperor doesn't believe him. You are to carry a message to the frontier camp, a coated silk strip with a single command woven inside it. You are told what the message says. You are told not to read it. You're told the scroll has been marked lightly, so if tampered with, it reveals a hidden pattern under moonlight. If this happens, you are to destroy it. The weight hits you harder than the scroll's silk. Zala is already waiting when you return. She watches you with an intensity that feels heavier than usual. You feel it too. This run could start a war. Or stop one. Or get you killed somewhere too quiet to matter. By nightfall, you're moving. The route is unfamiliar, northwest ridges, snake-choked gullies, and plains patrolled by rogue factions who don't wear colors and don't ask questions. You travel light. No food. Just water, the scroll, the ring on your finger, and the cheetah at your side. The first day is long, but smooth. The second begins to crack. You pass a burned-out caravan post, its roof collapsed, smoke still curling from half-melted lanterns. No bodies. Just drag marks in silence. Zala sniffs the air and growls low, a sound you rarely hear. You both keep moving. By the third night, you arrive near the cousins' camp. Torchlight wavers in the hills. Banners flap in the wind, but not the Empire's. You don't approach the front. You go around. To the cook fire. A lean man with a hawk tattoo on his throat waits for you. He doesn't speak, just nods, takes the scroll, holds it to the flame, just enough to test the edges. Then turns away. Message delivered. But something itches at the back of your skull. A note, a glance, a silence too long. You retreat with Zala, halfway down the ridge, and pause beneath a tree twisted into the shape of a question mark. You pull out a sliver of polished stone and hold the scroll fragment under it. Just a corner you memorize. One stitch out of place. But the weave is perfect. You wait for the moon. Under its glow, the silk flashes faintly. You weren't the first one to carry it. Someone else opened it. And someone else changed it. You return to camp without stopping for sleep. The moment you arrive, you hand the decoded scroll to the palace guard, not in triumph, but urgency. The message, it turns out, had been reversed. A phrase meant to assure was rewritten as a threat. If delivered uncorrected, it would have sounded like a death sentence. Sabotage. From within. Historians still argue whether the great rift between the imperial cousins began over pride, miscommunication, or calculated betrayal. What they don't know is that it very nearly began 3 days earlier, inside a scroll with a whisper sewn into its skin. And a runner who noticed a thread out of place. That night, you're summoned by the Emperor. He says nothing. Just gestures. Zala walks beside you as you leave the throne room. No leash. No signal. Just silence. And trust. You stand at the edge of a valley so quiet, it could be a painting. The air is still. Too still. Below you, the cousins' camp has folded its tents. Only the trampled grass and smoldering fire pits remain. Gone are the banners, the watchfires, the mercenaries with silver-threaded cloaks. Even the hawk-throated messenger is gone. They've moved, but where? You've been sent to find out. But this mission feels different. Not just because it's longer, or more dangerous, or because your last scroll nearly started a civil war. This time, the tension isn't in your chest. It's in Zala. She's uneasy. Her tail doesn't sway. She doesn't range ahead like she used to. She stays close. Too close. As if she's guarding you. The trail leads west, into unfamiliar foothills. You've never run here. The terrain is slippery, covered in moss-slicked rock and sudden ravines where the earth has crumbled away from old rains. Twice, you slip. Once, you cut your knee. Zala stays silent. Not because she doesn't care, but because every sound feels like a risk now. By the third day, you begin to hear rumors. A goat herder says he saw the cousins' guards heading toward the sacred salt mines. Another claims they passed by at night, whispering of messages gone sour and the cat runner who stole the truth. You swallow hard. They know about you. Historians rarely mention what happened in the final years before the emperor consolidated his power. The scrolls speak of diplomatic genius. A few mention quiet purges. But none describe what it felt like to be a messenger, caught between two bloodlines, carrying truths that could splinter kingdoms. You climb a ridge and spy a flicker of movement in the valley below, dark figures, clustered around a hidden shrine. The cousin himself, maybe. Or his new allies. You're supposed to observe, not engage. But then you hear it, a yelp. Zala. She's gone. You spin, heart thudding. No sound. No movement. Then, a glint of chain in the bushes. They've taken her. You move without thinking. Down the ridge, through thorn and dust and the red haze of fury, you crash into the clearing just as they're slipping a hood over her head. One man shouts. Another reaches for a blade. You don't reach. You run. You fake left. Dive right. Elbow into ribs. Knee to the chest. You've trained for speed, not combat, but your body remembers the blade you hit in your boot last mission. It finds the nearest leg. Chaos. Zala writhes free. You whistle, once, high and sharp. A command not used since your earliest drills, scatter and return. She bolts. You follow. The trees blur. Your breath rips in your throat. Behind you, the cousins' men crash through undergrowth, cursing in 3 dialects. You run faster. For the first time, Zala is ahead but not leaving you. She looks back every few strides. Her path zigzags, guiding you through brush, past sinkholes, across hidden gullies like a needle stitching through chaos. Eventually, the sounds behind fade. You drop to your knees in a grove of ancient fig trees, chest heaving. Zala sits beside you, bloody at the shoulder, panting hard, but alive. You press your forehead to hers. That's when it hits you. You're not neutral anymore. You're no longer just the feet between kings. You've made a choice. Or maybe Zala made it first, and you just followed. Somewhere back in the capital, they'll call this treason. Somewhere else, they'll call it loyalty. You don't care. You dig a small hollow in the dirt. Take out a message cloth, an inkstone, and one of your precious coated beads. You write a single word. Then you send it back to the palace with a decoy runner. Your scroll says, prepare. The wind shifts. So does everything else. The forest no longer feels like shelter. The trees whisper warnings in the wind, and every snapped twig sounds like a blade being drawn. You and Zala move differently now, not as runner and companion, but as fugitives. There's no more trail. No markers. Just instinct and tension stretched tight as bowstring. You're headed south, not because you were told to, but because every step north smells like a trap. Zala leads more than she follows now. She pauses at every ridge, sniffs the air, listens longer than you think she needs to. You don't question her anymore. She's right too often for pride. 3 days pass. No fires. No words. Your food runs low. Your thoughts grow darker. You sleep in hollows, eat only when your hands stop shaking. Every muscle in your body hums with fatigue. Every nerve feels peeled open. The scroll you sent to the palace, prepare, was your last act as a sanctioned courier. You're not sure if they believed you. You're not sure they'll forgive you. But then, as dusk bleeds across the sky, you crest a hill and see it. Smoke, but the wrong kind. Not campfire, signal. Controlled. Timed. Coming from the royal outpost at Azar Ridge. You crawl the final stretch, using brush and stone as cover. Through a break in the undergrowth, you spot them, the cousins' men, hoisting false banners, unloading crates from camels. Too many for a diplomatic visit. And they're armed. Heavy. Zala growls low. A sound like coals cracking. You place your hand on her back. She's trembling, not with fear, but restraint. You know that feeling. You breathe through it. The plan is simple, run. Not away, but through. You'll reach the outpost's second wall, break the watch line, and deliver a final message directly to the Royal Guard captain. It's reckless. But so is betrayal. You wait for the moon to rise, then move. Fast. Silent. Zala beside you like a streak of smoke. The first sentry never sees you. The second hears you, but too late. You scale the back wall, land badly, twist your ankle, keep running. Zala circles and flanks the barracks, forcing confusion. Screams rise. Blades drawn. Arrows miss. You duck. Then, a clearing. The captain's tent. You crash through the flap, blood in your mouth, scroll in hand. Read it, you gasp. No. He does. His face drains. Within an hour, the outpost is sealed. The cousins' men are detained. The crates? Full of bribes, forged orders, stolen royal seals. You sit outside, shaking, Zala's head on your lap. A medic wraps your foot. You taste copper. The captain returns. You were right, he says. You may have stopped a civil war. You don't speak. You just press your forehead to Zala's and close your eyes. Historians will later call it the smoke plot. Many won't know your name. Fewer will mention the cheetah. But the ones who do will say, there was once a runner who didn't just carry the truth. He outran the lie. You return to the capital under escort, but not as a prisoner. More like something sacred. Word travels faster than you do, somehow it always does, and by the time you pass through the palace gates, whispers are already stirring. The runner who stopped a rebellion. The cat who saw through treachery. Some say you carried a blade soaked in poison. Others claim Zala tore out the throat of the cousin's spy herself. Neither is true. Both are close enough. You don't get parades. You get summoned. Straight to the throne chamber, where the emperor waits, not draped in gold today, but in dark cotton, brows drawn low. The scroll you delivered rests on his lap, now sealed again and ringed with red wax. He doesn't speak for a long time. Just stares. At you. At Zala. At the memory of how close his empire came to unraveling. Then, quietly, you could have stayed hidden. You could have run the other way. You nod. You could have. His gaze shifts to Zala, curled beside your feet, tail twitching. And she? She led me back. That, apparently, is enough. The ceremony happens at dusk, private, shadowed. The emperor places a braided silver collar around Zala's neck, an honor once reserved for temple animals and royal ancestors. For you, a simple gesture, the obsidian ring on your finger is replaced with one made of pale jade, carved in the shape of a leaping cat. Fewer people notice. The ones who do never forget. Afterward, you're told you may retire. Live well. Teach if you want. Your days of running are over. You're not relieved. Not disappointed. Just quiet. But Zala doesn't slow. She starts pacing again. Circling courtyards. Sniffing the wind. So you rise. Strap on your sandals. Fold a message into your sash. Not from the emperor, not from the court, but your own. A letter to the next runner. The one training now. Because stories don't stop. And messengers don't rest. Together, you and Zala walk beyond the gates. Not as fugitives. Not as heroes. Just as a pair. Historians argue whether you continued serving the palace or faded into myth. Some say you trained a new generation of runner beast pairs in the southern provinces. Others claim Zala lived another 20 years, her final resting place marked by a smooth stone etched with only one word, swift. But there's a third version. That you both vanished into the dry hills. And whenever the wind rose and a shadow flickered across the ridge, villagers would say, there. The last true messenger. Still running. And if they looked closely enough, they'd swear there was a second shadow too, low to the ground, fast as memory, silent as breath. You sit in the doorway of a stone hut that wasn't here a year ago. The sky is low and purple, bruised with the end of another long day, and the wind from the south smells faintly of burned cedar and lightning. You've lit no fire. You've written no scroll. You said nothing in hours. Zala lies beside you, as she always has, as she always does. Her breath is slower now. Still steady, still deep, but old. It happened gradually. A limp in a left paw. A longer pause before jumping the low wall behind the courtyard. A sigh, soft as cloth, before lying down in the sun and not getting up again for a while. She's run more roads than you can remember. Seen more secrets than most kings. Now, she's just watching the sky with you, blinking slowly. You never took another official mission after the last. Not because you couldn't. Because you knew, some stories aren't meant to be followed. Some stories are meant to end. You kept training. Quietly. One runner at a time. Never announced. Never recorded. They came barefoot, uncertain, clumsy. You gave them thorns and maps, old man wisdom and sand in their eyes. A few brought animals. None brought cheetahs. There was only ever one Zala. She lifts her head slightly now, ears twitching, and you know. She sees something. Not a threat. Not prey. Just a memory, walking toward her in the dark. You place a hand gently on her ribs. Her purring is faint now, like the last echo of a drumbeat once heard in the deepest parts of the rift. The stars begin to rise. You stay with her through the night, through the stillness, through the quiet. When morning comes, you bury her beneath the fig tree at the top of the ridge. You wrap her in the old red sash, the one with the golden claw embroidered into the heart. You carve no name into the stone. Just one line. She ran beside truth. You walk back down the hill slowly, each step softer than the last, the wind at your back, the road stretching ahead, not demanding, not calling, just waiting. Maybe you'll run again someday. But tonight, you rest. So now, you sit still. The story has run its course, as all stories do, not with a grand fanfare, but with the hush of twilight settling over hills that remember more than they tell. You feel the dust of ancient roads beneath your feet, still, the breath of the cheetah lingering near your calf, as if Zala were curled there again. Let your body soften now. Let the weight of every sprint, every oath, every whispered message you never heard slip away like sand between open fingers. The wind has calmed. The drums have long stopped. Even the stars seem less sharp. All that remains is breath. Yours. Measured. Easy. The kind a runner takes not after victory, but after return. This is the stillness after truth is carried. After danger is past. After silence has said everything it needed to say. You are not racing now. You are not decoding, or watching, or listening for paw prints behind you. You are safe. Let that settle. Let it echo once, gently, in the chest. Let it become warmth behind your eyes. You have been the runner. The map. The oath. Now, let yourself be the earth. Still, holding the memory of every footstep. Good night, messenger. You've done enough. Sweet dreams.